Long enough. You say the line. You say it.
I don't know the line.
Ladies and gentlemen, now
It's too late.
Jesus Christ. This guy has never seen this show before in his fucking life.
I watch
He's
this
never
all the
seen it.
time.
He's never watched it. Not once.
I often miss the intro though because I'm running late and stuff. So.
So Wabi Sabi says, and now it's too late. So no, there's actually no word and the only people that do that are very failed producers. Those are the only people who say that. Celeste is here with us. Job security for Dave. Dave has infinity job security on this program. Harambe says, is there a boogaloo going on where he's at? Jonathan?
No, not really. I mean, I just, live in a small town and, because I don't want to be around a lot of people. So just the shirt, keeps people away.
Yeah. Can you guys actually read the letters on the shirt though? I can. Yeah. He's trying to get us banned. That's what he's doing. All right. Guys, welcome back for a special Thursday night edition of It's Way Too Late with Alan Mosley. I am your host, Alan Mosley. I'm joined this week by our friend, and I'll give you the treatment we give Mahara. You're the National Communications Director of Alan Mosley TV. It's Jonathan Carranza. Nobody's gonna believe that shit.
No,
Jonathan, how's it going?
Oh, it's freaking going. Trying to get a business up and running.
Wait, hold on. We actually Celeste has resubscribed to the program with the question, should Daisy be the official mascot of It's Too Late? Yes, she absolutely should be, but let me update the counter here really quick. All right, so first things first, because I already have the Reader's Digest version of the story, but I want you to kind of tell it from beginning to end for everybody. So we'll start off with you're up in Washington State, not Washington D.C. If you were in, he'd be dead if he was in Washington D.C. No, he's in Washington State.
I would have been arrested by now. I carry 2 pistols on me and a knife everywhere I go. So.
You know what? So did John Wilkes Booth. Isn't that crazy? All right. So anyway, no, just don't answer that. So anyway, Jonathan is looking at starting a small business near where he lives in Washington State. So first, before we get into anything else, tell us a little bit about the idea that you had and kind of what motivated you to open a business.
Well, the motivation, I don't know, it's kind of a weird random thought. I stayed in an RV park one time when I moved up here for like 4 months. It was a family of 6 in an RV at an RV park. It was really cramped, but the place was really freaking nice. And I was like, man, it doesn't take shit to run an RV park. These people just sit in the office, hanging out, watching TV, and just collect money. It's awesome. I want to do that. And, like that idea sat in my head for a few years, and I met a good buddy of mine. He's a good buddy now, up here. He's my business partner on it. And we're both veterans. We both medically discharged, and it turns out we actually went to basic training right next to each other, like at the same time. Small
So
world.
So an RV park. Now you don't live because I think a lot of people who may not be from your part of the country, they hear Washington, they think Seattle because that's all they
Oh
know about
God,
the
no,
that Washington state. You live in a much different part of the state demographically and culturally
big time.
than the big city. So
Yeah.
tell people a little bit about the area that you're in and the motivation for opening an RV park in that location.
Well, there aren't enough RV parks. When we moved up here, there are actually several RV, but there's actually quite a few, more than you would think in for a small area like this. But they're always completely booked. We had to reserve it like a month or two in advance, and we got in because someone canceled. And otherwise, we wouldn't have had a place to stay up here. And so there's a lot of that going around. Every single RV park up here is booked solid. Um, some of them aren't even taking reservations for next summer because they're already booked. So I was like, shit, yeah, there's a really huge demand and not enough supply, right? Basic economics, So I figured, why not actually do this? And then my business partner was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So we just got some money together and started doing it. It was kind of almost on a whim, but we decided that this is definitely something we're going to do. Um, and it's proving to be a gigantic pain in the ass.
Well, before we get to that part of the story, so you're saying that these things are booked way out in advance, and despite the fact that you thought that there was a lot of locations available beforehand,
Yeah.
do you think that that's because of a lot of camping and tourism, or do you think that there's a contributing factor of a lot more people are kind of doing the RV lifestyle because they can't afford, mega rich homes and mortgages and things like that, or is it a combination of all of those? What do you
It
think?
it's a combination, really. I mean, when we moved up here, it hadn't gotten to that point yet. We've been here about 5 years, so it was a few years before COVID, and it was pre-COVID, and they were booked out even then. So it wasn't really uh, an economic issue. This area has a lot of hunting and fishing tourism, and there's also a lot of old people that live here. So people come to visit family, and they stay in the RV parks. And old people like RVs for some reason. Um, but it even especially now with people getting into the RV life because it's a cheaper lifestyle. I mean, I kind of wish I had gotten into it sooner when I joined the army. We only had two kids at the time, and uh, it would have been so much cheaper if I lived in an RV at the RV park on post instead of living at the on post housing. I would have banked all that sweet government taxpayer housing allowance.
Now you said that you guys had already put some money together and you just dove in head first. You guys just immediately started working on a property. So tell us a little bit about the property you guys were at and some of the work you had done so far before you ran into your first
Yeah.
kind of obstacles.
Okay. So we originally actually went for a smaller property that already had a building on it, and they turned out to be kind of shitty sellers. So we got out of there as fast as we could because there was nothing was getting fixed the way they said it was. It was going to take forever. So we ended up with this lot. It's 8.32 acres, has two highway accesses. It's right on the highway, and it's really nice. Got a creek going through it. Uh, there were places where there was already people driving through the property because for some reason people like to drive around empty properties. I don't know. And so we got some road base put in, and the roads are looking pretty nice. And yeah, we got a nice fence up because the neighbors have a bunch of trash, It's a mix of trash and nice stuff, but it doesn't look great. So it's we put a nice fence and to look good and cover up all that stuff, and also keeps our RV guests out of their horses. They have a little horse fence, just a little barbed wire fence that people can easily cross. So we don't want people messing with their horses and then they complain and we're liable because they fed them something that killed them or something like that. So we're like, hell yeah, we're gonna build a nice fence, and we did. We went to Home Depot and took out a project loan from Home Depot. Not a lot of people know that, but you can go to Home Depot and get a project loan up to $100,000. And so we went even more into massive debt and got all these pre-made cedar fence panels, and they look really good. It's a $7,500 fence.
So here in chat, Gibbs says, my dad has some bayou acreage where locals have camps nearby. He's wanted to do an RV park for years. So this might be interesting then to hear about the next part of our conversation. So what was the first big challenge that you guys ran into? So you've decided on a property, you've started to tidy it up a little bit, you've got some access, you've got some roads leading through the property, maybe done a little landscaping, put up some fencing, put
A
up some
lot of
privacy.
landscaping. Oh my
What
god.
then what's the first big obstacle from there?
Well, we went to apply for a septic permit, and
Oh, hold on. Let me just say really quick. Lyle just said, let me guess, septic. All right. Okay. Go
Yep.
ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, so we applied for a permit because you need permission from the county and the state to shit on your own property, right? um, so we went to an engineer that said that they've done this, and they were working with a tech service that specializes in septic systems, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we got this. It's just a little simple site map, and we'll put in the application. $750 application." And the county said, "This is the wrong application because you have a creek running through the property." And we're like, "Wait a minute. Why does that matter?" Like the septic area is way far away from the creek, and it's actually downhill from the creek.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "No, you have to file a SEPA report and get a biologist that's certified to determine whether or not there is a wetland associated with the creek." And we're like, "There's no way there's a wetland here. This is ridiculous. Like, are you telling me the government doesn't already have this mapped out? Well, why am I paying for the government to have a record of a creek?" You know? And so I was like,
Mm-hmm.
"Fine, okay, whatever. We get it. We got a biologist to come out and working with a different engineering firm because we're not going to go with the one that filed the wrong freaking application, you know." And so obviously it came back no wetland associated with the creek. So we're like, "Great, awesome." They're like, "But you were supposed to ask permission for the road because it's next to a creek. People have already complained." And we're like, "What are you talking about? The road was already there. We just put more rock on top of it." And they're like, "Yeah, I know. That's fine. People should mind their own business." And we didn't get a fine for it because the county people were actually of the mindset that people should mind their own business, which is really freaking cool and probably pretty rare from county clerks. But that's the place we live in. A lot of people, I've heard all kinds of that sentiment from different county workers. I went to go register my car from Texas to Washington, and when they told me how much tax I was saying, they said this is how much government theft is, and I was like, I love this place, but they still require a bunch of bullshit for permits and stuff. They can't really get around. Um, so they said, awesome, you have your SEPA report. Now you need a site analysis and a topographical survey, and you need to have an engineer plan a buffer between your park and the creek for to prevent stormwater runoff from under the RVs into the creek. And we're just like, wait a minute. We have to have an engineer design a mound. Why? You know? Like what
Hmm.
the hell? I was like, I could just put a road there and that'll keep the water running off away from the creek. And she said it could in fact be a road, but an engineer needs to plan it. So if for those of you who have never worked with an engineer, for a sheet of work, well, what they call a sheet, it can be multiple pages, but what they call a sheet is like $3,000. So the topographical survey is one sheet plus all the labor to come out and do it. The site map is one sheet. The site analysis is one sheet. The uh, septic planning is another sheet. The water planning is another sheet. So we're looking at, like, I think total it was going to be 30, 40 grand just to get it approved, and then additional to get the water system and septic all worked up. So
Wow.
because the county wants all this ridiculous stuff, we got to pay 30 to 40 grand extra for literally no reason. It's like, okay, septic system doesn't interact with the creek. You can look at it and say, yeah, it doesn't interact with the creek. The water runoff from the RV park, the RVs are all below the creek. Like, it can't water can't run uphill. They still have to have I still have to pay for that rubber stamp.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So for folks who have never had to deal with this before, because you got to deal with the city, you got to deal with the county, you got to deal with the state, and then you have federal regulations like EPA. So, a lot of the biological survey and the wetland stuff is all EPA type shit. But the thing about an engineer is you have to get these plans approved. So it's a double whammy. So not only do you have to have, because really the engineer, you can have an engineer do the physical labor of doing a survey, drawing plans, etc. But the real kicker is that whoever the engineer on record, the person who's actually going to sign the sheets that say, I sign off on this work. And then, say for instance you're moving to the step of you're doing some building or some construction, say you're developing a subdivision. Then you have to go and get those plans approved. They're getting approved by the city or the county. They're getting approved by the state. And here's the amazing thing for people that are not aware of this. So you have to get plans drawn up. And I mean, if it was a more complex construction, obviously there's going to be building plans, but
Yeah.
you have to have the surveys and everything else. And then you have to get those plans approved, which means that you get that little jagged state seal with, with the signature of the city planner and the engineer and that sort of thing. But here's the beautiful part too. Say for instance you do all of that. Say, for instance, you pay all that money and you go through all that bureaucratic red tape, and it happens. They actually do accept the plans. They're on record. They stamp them. They are approved. You are ready for construction. Let's say hypothetically there's something wrong with the plans. Let's say hypothetically there's something wrong with the plans but they're approved, right? I mean, you would think that, look, if I gave you plans and you signed off on them, you're it's now on you. You're the one that you said I had to get the plans approved and you approved them, right?
Yeah.
If there's an issue with the plans, and especially if that issue travels forward to the actual construction, say you're putting in septic, say you're doing sewer, say you're tying in water lines, if something is not up to code, if there's a gradient issue, whatever, and the work gets done, and then an inspector finds the mistake, even if the mistake was on the plans that the city approved, guess whose responsibility it is to fix it and pay for it?
Yeah. Yeah, that could be an issue. That's where it's good to that that's where the small town comes into play, right? Because we all see each other a lot, and you can kind of, you know, well, what's the phrase? Grease some pockets on the down low. Say, oh, hey, it would be really cool. You could stay here. Your family could stay here, and not have to pay anything, good buddy. But yeah, we you could just hope. But yeah,
Yeah.
if that happens, I'm kind of I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do.
So
Maybe I'll just
so
say, oh, you inspected it wrong. It's actually 4 feet down. Right?
okay, so then what's the next thing? You've got septic, you've got the issue with looking for an engineer. What's the next obstacle that you've run into, or the most recent one?
um. Well, we applied for uh a permit to sell beer and wine and
Mm-hmm.
cigarettes. And we also applied for a liquor permit because in Washington you can sell liquor at gas stations and grocery stores and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Uh, Not all states have that. Texas, for example, state designated store that you can go to, and it's almost never open. Um, but so we're like, sweet, yeah, we'll provide liquor to our RV guests, and then watch as they drive RVs all liquored up into other RVs. It'll be a blast. Um, so first off, right off the bat, they said no to the liquor. We were like, what the hell's going on? Why no to the liquor? And it's because our store is not larger than 10,000 square feet. That's it.
Not
That's
larger than that.
not it. Our store is smaller than 10,000 square feet, and it has to be larger than 10,000 square feet in order to be approved for a liquor license.
Now that's
It,
I'm sorry, that obviously reeks to me that if it's a situation where they it was denied, and the reason for that license being denied was that your general goods store that's going to be on your RV park property or campgrounds is not greater than 10,000 square feet, is that the regulation is written in such a way that they only want the mega box store moving in. If it's
yeah.
anyone that's not a mega box store, you just don't even get a. It's not even a matter of whether or not you can compete with them. You don't even get a chance to.
Well, see, here's the thing. It's not that they don't allow you to sell liquor in a store that's smaller than 10,000 square feet. They don't allow you to get a new license for a store that's smaller than 10,000 square feet. If there was somebody out there selling a liquor store business out in the middle of nowhere and it was going under, who wouldn't go under in the middle of nowhere? But say they didn't want to do it anymore. They're selling the business. I could buy it and move the license to my smaller store.
Yeah,
Perfectly
so that's
fine with
the
that. They're
that's
okay with
the
that.
yeah, so they're running the same kind of racket then. It's like the old taxi cab tokens in places like New York City or FCC licenses for radio stations or um, licenses for trucking for trucking groups and semis is that it's not a matter of whether or not you could find 1,000 more dudes with a truck to move things. It's that you'd have to have an organization that has the license, like with uh, TSA or Transportation Security. You'd have to have the license or the token to be able to do interstate commerce. Otherwise, you just don't get to. Uh,
Yeah.
and so what ends
Like
up
with
happening
liquor
is,
distributors.
yeah, so there's a lot of people out there. So this is another one of these old. This is something Milton Friedman used to talk about all the time. Is people don't understand. There's actually a lot of people out there who don't own a truck, who don't own a store. They literally own a license, and they're effectively renting that license to someone else for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year. And that other person is operating a business, they have access to a radio wave. They're doing a radio station or any of the number of other sectors where this sort of token system is run. And that's exactly the same kind of grift that Washington's doing.
Yes. It's just like the how they insist that you can't be a beer brewer and a beer distributor at the same time. Like you can you can brew beer, but you have to sell it to a distributor, and then they can sell it to the store. You can't sell it to the store. It's just it's an absurd control on the market.
Yeah. Well, and then that, of course, that adds the extra layer too of a lot of times you'll find if you do your research. I know, people know about things like BlackRock and and venture and things like that, where you'll have these massive capital conglomerates that will own a majority of shares and stock in all of the relevant companies in order to basically have a monopoly on some type of product or service. But it again, it's almost like out of spite. It's a slap in the face of, could you or I, compete with Budweiser? Almost certainly not. But it isn't even a matter if we could. We don't even get the chance to.
Yeah, yeah. It generally it's done at the state and local level when they do that kind of stuff. Most of these things aren't even federal issues, except with the TSA stuff. But it's at the it's does your state like small business? The answer is no. They don't want you to start a business. They want the businesses that are already there to sell to larger businesses, and they want larger businesses to move in. They don't care about your mom and pop store. They don't care about middle class business owners. That they want tax revenue from big giant corporations, and we're not a big giant corporation, so we're having a hard time doing this. And there's also other issues with the beer and wine. They want us to have $3,000 worth wholesale value of consumable food, not including bottled water and sodas. And we're like, well, we don't plan on having that much inventory for food. We're just gonna have a small little supply shop for RV guests. People who, I don't know, forgot to bring all their food and they want to get a couple packs of ramen so they don't have to go over to the Walmart, right? Or they don't want to drive into town to go get beer, give them supply beer, or they forgot toilet paper. All kinds of different things. They have little supplies for them. But
So what's the
so
official reasoning behind that? What was the reason given for, oh, you have to have X amount of supplies of X different commodities?
no reason, no reason given. It's just that is the
It's just an
regulation.
arbitrary number.
Deal with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. There's also another funny thing. Obviously, for when you apply for a beer and tobacco license and all that, there is a background check involved. Duh. And I was curious, so I asked the lady on the phone, um, what disqualifies you, just out of curiosity. And she said there's not. She's seen people with all kinds of different felonies get approved, and the main thing that gets you shot down on that background check is failure to accurately report your background. So, say you had a speeding ticket when you were like 17 and you forgot to write it down. That's a point against you. You know, you get a certain number of points, and they deny your application. So immediately, my fucking brain was like, "Wait a minute, hold up. I can get denied my application for not writing down all my stuff, and you can tell me what I missed."
Yeah.
And I literally asked her. I was like, "Why am I filling out a paper with the information that you have?
Yeah.
You can tell me what I missed. Why do I need to fill it out?" She was dumbfounded. She had no idea. I don't think she'd ever considered that before in her life. She just went through the motions of the bureaucratic process and did what she had to do so she could clock out and go home, and never once gave any thought to how
Yes.
little sense that makes.
So this is the exact same thing then as, I mean, the exact same thing as your taxes, exactly same thing as the IRS, particularly federal taxes, is that for the overwhelming majority of people, for 95% plus of people, the IRS already knows what you owe. They already have in their
Yeah,
database your income and what you owe, and your filing of your taxes. It's like they already have enough information that they could send you your return with a bill, with an invoice,
yeah.
or the refund for that matter, and they don't do it. They expect, because it's basically a creation of an entire industry that otherwise wouldn't exist.
Oh
They
yeah.
expect private citizens, whether through CPAs or on their own or whatever, to compile the information and send it
TurboTax.
into the IRS along with their whatever they owe or whatever. And the same question arises there, is that, well, if I'm sending you things you already have on record, then why am I going through the stage at all? Why didn't you either just, of course, we're all taxation is theft people here. We're not talking about that tonight. Is that
Yeah.
if you know what I owe, why didn't you just tell me you owe this and me write you a check? Why did I file at all?
Yeah.
And and you can't help but wonder. I'm sure that they would have some nonsense official answer, but you can't help but wonder. The answer isn't, we're trying to see how many people make mistakes, because that's just revenue generation. That's all it is. It's revenue generation.
Well,
It would
I'm
be
I'm sure part of it has to do with not wanting to admit to the gigantic mass surveillance that they have on our bank accounts and employment information and all that shit. That it's a massive breach of the Fourth Amendment to say, "Hey, you're hiding money, and we know how much, so we're going to prosecute you for it." So they have to let you fuck it up. Yeah.
Yeah, well, so
So
for
they can get a
people out
warrant.
there for people out there that are working for box stores, or for even modestly sized businesses that have a lot of digitized information, I know something that the IRS added in recent years is all the different employers have their little identification number, and there's a little number on your W-2 that if that employer is hooked up with the IRS, then you don't have to fill out your whole W-2. If you put in that number, it automatically generates
Yeah.
your W-2, but so that you don't have to fill it out. Of course, they'll sell
Yeah,
it
I
as a
have one of those
convenience, right?
numbers.
Where they
Yeah.
sell it as a convenience, right? It's like, look, we're helping you out, so that instead of you having to go through and type in every box, you just put in that number and we already have your W-2. But of course, that raises the question. That means they already had your W-2, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, I have one of those numbers now because you can't operate a business legally without one. Even though I don't really plan on hiring anyone, I still had to get an employer identification number. It's ridiculous. But I don't know. My brain just went right now.
Well, so because I know that we've covered most of the things already. We're already up to 40 minutes. Tell everybody. So where are we at today? Where is it at right now?
Well, we are getting electric put in, and believe it or not, you don't need a county permit to put in electric. That goes through Labor and Industries, and they're the ones that inspect it, and we're kind of like, biting our nails over here, worrying because we couldn't afford for them to dig the trenches, so we rented an excavator and dug all the trenches ourselves. And we're just like, damn it! I hope like not one freaking inch of it is too high. You know, they told us it needs to be 30 inches under the ground, and I was like, great, I'm gonna shoot for 36 just to be sure. But
Yeah.
yeah. So we're getting that in. So there's pipes laid down in there for the conduit, and they're gonna run the cables, and then they're gonna wire up our office building, and we need to finish putting in insulation. Because it gets really freaking hot in there, and we have a little window unit AC, and it just does not keep up without the insulation. But yeah, that's where we're at today. The electric is being put in, and then shortly we will have water pipe run out to the well, because we have a shared well with our neighbor, and so we have to run 250 feet of pipe to the well. And we can hook it up to one connection. We can have one like frost-free hydrant right there next to the office, and we don't need any permits for that. But as soon as we get more connections, we have to get since it's for the public consumption, it has to be a Group B water system up to 8 connections, and then past 8 connections, it has to be an engineered Group B water system, which costs the same as an engineered Group A water system, which is for more than 15 connections. And so we're just going to get a Group A water system and have it planned out. But the county doesn't know whether or not the Department of Ecology is currently requiring Group A water systems to have all the pipes installed at once for the finished product, or if they're allowing you to do one set of pipes for phase 1 and then another for phase 2, and so on and so forth. So if we end up having to do all of it at once, we're going to have to go with a 8 connection Group B water system.
So we'll start to wrap it up with this. Learning the things that you've learned along the way so far, what if anything would you do differently if you had to do it over? I know that's I know that's a toughie, but
I probably would have gotten a whole lot more shit done before asking permission.
So you would have done a lot more with the existing property before you sought any permits or anything, just to say this is existing, we now want to add on to. Whereas now they're
because I could say it's there, prove it wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh well.
So best case scenario then, what has to happen? What's next, And best case
Uh,
scenario, everything goes your way. When does this thing actually get to cut the ribbon?
uh, best case scenario at this point, we we are allowed to have our Group A water system phased, and the septic system will be phased because that's going to be like 30 grand to install. It's funny how they say, oh yeah, we can do it for like 10, 12 grand, and they're like, oh well, you're going to need a this and that, and it's going to have to be pressure distribution and all blah 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 blah. It's going to cost 30 grand. Like, well, dude, what the fuck? What are you doing to me? But so honestly, best case scenario, we're allowed to phase everything, and phase one is just electric only RV lots. And no, God, no, we don't need a pond. The and then we work with that and save money to expand later. But even electric only spots are going to fill up. We won't be getting quite as much, but they'll still all be full. We just need to get to where we can have a conditional use permit application and get that approved so they can say, yes, you can operate a RV park under these conditions. And then they'll lay out a bunch of stuff. Like they're probably going to say you can't have music playing past 10. You gotta salt the roads during the winter, or they're gonna have a lot of little nitpicky things that they're gonna make us do. The roads have to be so wide so a fire truck can get in, even though we're not covered in a fire district. So no fire truck is going to show up.
Well, speaking of music. We're gonna roll out the red carpet for you, Jonathan. You're getting the whole "it's too late" treatment. Jonathan, do you have a final thought?
Final thought. Jesus Christ! Don't build a business. Just frickin' buy one.
Celeste says, "Where's my marble?" I knew it was going to come to that. People just want to see the marbles on stream. They don't give a shit about the show anymore. They just want to see the marbles. Were you here, Jonathan, last night to see marbles on stream?
No, I was working through the whole show last night.
Well, you'll probably see it. You'll probably see it next week, so you'll know why everyone's all addicted. Celeste says, Jonathan's always fun to watch. You're fun to watch, Jonathan. Yeah, yes. Gibbs, exclamation mark play. I mean, I could fire up the game, but I'm not going to, because I want to go live my life, as opposed to sit here for the next 2 hours playing the marbles game. Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I feel for you for a lot of stuff you're dealing with. So people who have known me for longer than I was a late night show host, I owned a printing business in Middle Tennessee, and I mean, there was a lot of highs and lows. So we just off the top of my head, we didn't have to have a business license because printing falls under manufacturing, and some manufacturers don't have to have a business license. But on the other hand, of course, taxes. People have no idea that when you hear on TV some random conservative, who they're probably just virtue signaling, but some random conservative who says, oh, we have to lower taxes on hard-working Americans and small business and entrepreneurs, they don't understand how serious that is. That my business, when we were in our... When the business is only making something like, $250,000 a year, but out of that $250,000, that's gross, not net. And the net after the business pays its expenses and pays its taxes, and sales tax and all that, there's only $60,000 left over, and I had a business partner at the time, so then we split that 50-50. So I'm only taking home $30,000. I still then have to turn around and pay like $8,000 on that amount of money as a tax because I made it myself, as opposed to having gone and worked at fucking Home Depot.
You gotta reinvest, and you gotta have your little charity program that your business donates to and that you donate to. And a lot of people don't realize charitable nonprofit organizations are actually allowed to profit up to $100,000 a year. That's how you do it.
Yeah, you need to greenbelt your property, Jonathan, and then get a 501c3 started that's located on your campground.
We're gonna do a veteran. We're both veterans, right? We're both disabled veterans, so we're gonna do a veteran memorial walkway around the property and through the property. It's gonna be really cool. I know a lot of y'all like to hate on veterans, but whatever. Fuck you guys. It's gonna be a really nice walkway once it's all done. But the cool thing is, it will be its own 501c3.
Yep. I mean, you gotta use every tool at your disposal because they'll drain you of every single cent that they can. I know that from experience. So.
Yep.
Well, music's over. We're out of time.
Okay.
The real story here is that when Jonathan gets rich and successful from his business, he's gonna do a hostile takeover of Alan Mosley TV, and
yeah.
I'm
gonna buy it and then just employ Alan for minimum wage.
Yeah, God, minimum wage. And what's minimum wage in your state though? I think it should count by Washington, not by Tennessee.
I think it's up to like $14.75.
Oh yeah, okay, sure. Then I'm an employee of the state of Washington. Washington. Yeah. Hell, that'll be $14.75 an hour more than I make now. So.
True.
Yeah. Lyle says you'll be the Ted Turner of Alan Mosley TV. All right, guys. Well, we'll have a regular update with you. Y'all know Jonathan. Shit, just go to the community group and say, "Hey, Jonathan, when can I come park my RV?"
Yeah, definitely. Once we get permission from the county to allow RV campers on our property, then definitely everyone in the community will have a 5% discount.
There you go. Just promo code "It's Too Late," all one word.
There you go.
And you get 5% off.
5%.
I wish I had made a little banner to go across the bottom.
Well, I just thought of it right now. So.
Yeah, I'd have just drawn it with MS Paint. Just be a little... All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. I like how more people are still typing !play. People got addicted to the Marbles on Stream game, and now they're gonna expect that every fucking time we stream. I feel bad that you missed it, but you'll see what the hype is soon enough.
I'll go rewatch it. I actually oftentimes rewatch the shows I missed.
Yeah. Funny random side note before we log off, I used to do that. Back in the gold standard days, I would do the show with Blake, and it would just go straight up, no editing or anything. And I would listen back to the show the next day or two to kind of like hear what did we miss, what did I get wrong, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then now I haven't done that in a long time, and I won't, because now I realize I don't care. Yeah. /shrugs. Celeste says I also missed it. I thought it was a new thing. Do we have to actually play a race really quick?
Yeah.
So that
of course you
do. No, I'm not doing all that. We'll do it on Monday.
I tried, you guys. I tried.
Yeah, we'll do it on Monday. And then everybody can hang out. And the only thing is we're gonna have to raise the funds to have prizes for people when they win.
There
But
you go.
you'll see all that when it happens,
Careful,
guys.
the state will get involved. If you don't have a gambling license.
Yeah, they can gamble these nuts too, but uh,
They can read this shirt.
yeah, exactly. That's right. Guys, thanks for hanging out with us for a Thursday night edition of It's Way Too Late, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah.